alpha lion going to do to those children?
He's going to kill them.
He kills them, right? This has been documented several net films because he doesn't want them to remind him of the other lions, right? So that is and you can see that in other sort of similarly tribal kind of mammalian species, hunter predator type species. So presumably some of that DNA is in the human genome at some level, right? Do humans go around, if they have second, third marriages, they kill the children of their wives from the previous marriages?
No.
Not in general, no. So is that not an example of where we can transcend our own nature?
The evidence suggests that we have transcended.
So look, I think there's a misunderstanding here. We both agree on the fact. The theory behind the fact is what Lennox and Dawkins were disagreeing about.
Yes.
So Lennox was pointing out God as the cause of our moral sense. Dawkins was saying we rebelled against our DNA,
Yes.
right? Now, so what you've articulated here, we don't disagree on the fact. The point is, the concept of us. Now, here's something I do want to point out, and I said this to you earlier. Kin selection, reciprocal altruism, and the expanding circle. Those are theories that I disagree with. I believe are false, but they're coherent. I believe they're coherent. However, what Dawkins said about rebelling against our DNA is incoherent. Okay. So I'll explain why. I'll explain why.
I've actually been on my that may be wrong just as a layman, because you guys are on a higher level than me right now.
Sure.
But rebelling against my DNA, surely mutation is precisely what that would be. Mutation will be the thing when you are rebelling. You have an existing paradigm, which no, it can't change its nature except for mutation, which is the rebellion you're talking about, which creates the upgrade. That's what evolution speaks.
Okay, so that
which is how that works at the level of natural selection, but now it could happen even faster.
Okay,
now we're starting to develop gene editing technologies like
no, but
CRISPR.
there's a problem here.
What if you could edit your own DNA? Surely you could change your
Our DNA today came about, according to Darwinists, by random mutations being selected. Adding random mutations to that process doesn't make us more moral, right? It doesn't solve the problem. You're just adding more of the same thing. If DNA is something to be rebelled against, how DNA came about to add to that process.
No, sorry. You're not rebelling against DNA. You're rebelling against the paradigm that DNA is instated. That's not the same thing.
Okay, so
there's a pattern of behaviour the DNA instates, but you use the DNA then mutates and creates a new pattern of behaviour.
Okay,
so you can transcend your previous behavioural pattern. That would be the theory, which would account for the male lions eating other offspring, whereas we wouldn't.
No, but that's not what even Dawkins was referring to.
To some extent, I don't want to defend other people's opinions.
No. Okay. The conversation started off with why that is incoherent. Okay, so let me just explain and summarize, because I'm going to make it quick, why I believe that's totally incoherent. And later on we can get into the coherent things, kin selection, reciprocal altruism, and expanding circle, which are coherent, but I can show that they have major flaws. Okay. Now, when it comes to that idea of rebelling against our genes, Lennox points out to Dawkins, what is it within us that actually rebels? Now, if you're a naturalist, you're going to be wedded, most likely, especially someone like Dawkins, to some form of monism. That the mind is the brain at work. That's it. So from that perspective, it's incoherent to say rebel against your genes. Secondly, the other point is, why rebel against your genes? There's two problems here. One is the origin of the rebellion. The second is, why follow that imperative? Why not accept the genes?
Why? Because
conceptually,
I might think that the genes are incentivizing us to perform actions which I think are immoral, and I would like to not see those.
But that's circular.
Why is it circular?
It's circular because you want to be good, but I'm saying, why would you want to be good in the first place?
That's my base assertion. I'm saying.
Yeah, but what's the justification for that?
What's the
you
justification
can't
for
assume.
wanting to be good? That at some point I have to have a base assertion, right? You can't expect me to keep it for it to be touted all the way down.
Okay, but Darwinism has programmed us to be selfish. Why are you going against our state?
Yes, it has, but
Oh, thank you
I
for
can-
admitting
I
that,
can-
by
I
the
can
way,
decide
because a lot of people just don't know that.
That's the whole point of the selfish street. That's the whole point of that book. Yes, of course I agree with that. But just because it has programmed us in that way, does not necessarily mean we have to be that way. We can decide with our free will. You believe we have free will, right? To be different and not constantly murder and rape and steal and lie away.
Okay, but there's a gap between the nature and the actions that you think are correct. So, for example, if
Why does this have to be intellectual? Why can't I just decide and assert with my consciousness and free will?
It's not coherent from a materialist
Okay.
perspective, because if you think the materialist level
Right.
is dictating the cognitive level, then you can't
Well,
step
I-
out that
you
way.
said it better than that's what I was trying to articulate.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
okay, my counter position is then you're to me,
Okay, can
you're
you
strawmanning to an extent because I'm not a materialist. Okay, you're attacking the views, the logical consequences of people who are materialists, and you're correct. But I'm not. I've got a more nuanced view.
No,
Materialism might be
by the way,
correct,
by the way,
and I don't think either
by the way,
is
I'm
by the way,
not-
just to
I'm
point
not
out,
a materialist.
can you repeat that again because you articulated
sure
it?
I can.
Okay,
Just-
but that was good. That was really good.
No,
That was
usually I
good.
fumble.
Okay, so what you said is, if we were programmed and even our consciousness ultimately started off with that DNA.
If the mind is purely caused by the brain, so if the material brain purely causes the mind as like an epiphenomenon, yeah?
Yes, 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 yes.
byproduct, yeah, then it would be incoherent to argue that we could.
That's the point I was making.
Which is what you're suggesting.
That's the
to
point I was
supersede
making.
it. Okay, but
I'm not saying you're incoherent, I'm saying Dawkins is incoherent.
unless
So do you agree with that?
I would, unless there's a feedback loop, and Karl Popper and people like that have argued there may be a feedback loop. If you watch the recent debate with whoever it was, I can't remember. Whoever it was, forget it. I think Penrose and anyway, Penrose and analytical idealism, him, Bernardo Castro. They both argue that the
Oh,
function of
idealism. Okay. Do you
They
believe
both-
in that?
I tend to keep about 3 or 4 possibilities on the board. Okay? Materialism is one possibility I'll keep on the board. But I don't want to be anchored to it because I'm also panpsychism, I think we both think is also potentially true, and analytical idealism.
Okay, so can I just
Yeah?
add something?
So there's at least 3 models.
So I just want to. It's very important to clarify definitions, as you know.
Okay.
Why did you make a distinction between panpsychism and materialism?
Because in materialism, the mind would be caused by the brain. In other words, whereas
It's emergent.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure emergency. It's just a causal relationship. Maybe emergent, but it's caused by it. Yeah. Whereas in panpsychism, the mind would be a property of the brain,
Right.
and being caused by something is not the same as being a property of something. For example, if you've got a red car, the redness of the car isn't caused by the car. Whereas if I paint a car red, then I am causing the redness. Yeah.
Sure.
So the relationship is different in the two models.
Sure.
Now, if
Can I-
all matter has an inherent element of qualia to it, a latent element, which is the premise of panpsychism, then it's a very different universe to explore.
Sure,
and it may be coherent.
but some materialists, the reason why I'm saying this, some materialists say the universe is made of 4 fundamental building blocks: time, space, matter, qualia.
They acknowledge qualia, but
Yeah,
they're materialists.
yeah.
How do they square that circle?
Yes, the reason I pointed it out is because this is a fringe view in materialism.
Okay.
Some materialists say we can accept qualia and still be materialists. We can be panpsychists and materialists.
That sounds weird. I think time and space are emergent properties, so I don't think they're fundamental.
But that's because you don't believe we began off with consciousness. That's your assumption.
What do you? When did I say that?
You say you believe consciousness is an emergent property.
No, I didn't say that.
Or what did you say then?
I'm open to the panpsychist view as well.
He's open to, we're
Okay,
open to
so-
multiple.
So you can be a- you can-
The point with being open to multiple conflicting and competing possibilities is, yeah, I'm sure we're not anchoring ourselves into a singular position. I'm not pinning my flag to the mast, which you can accuse of that's that non-committal and whatever. But we're just humans in this crazy big universe. Of course, I don't know how it all works.
Right.
And you don't. And you don't.
But-
and you don't.
but-
either.
but
no one does.
But I do want to say one thing, which is quite categorical. I think materialism is categorically false.
Okay. Explain why.
Well, we spoke about qualia earlier.
Yeah.
That is the clearest evidence, because if we go back to Descartes' dictum, I think therefore I am is the only thing you could.
I am is
Yeah. Well, we can translate that to the modern day, I'm conscious, therefore I am.
Yeah.
Right? So if consciousness, and I believe it has, we've argued for it for enough decades to know this now, if consciousness cannot be explained from a naturalistic way, then materialism must be false. And I say that categorically, by the way.
Strong argument.
It is a
However,
strong.
there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy, Horatio, okay? I understand the limitations of my mind, and I should have respect for the unknown unknowns.
That's known as mysticism, by the way.
Okay, but I'm not into mysticism, I'm a deist, mystic and all of that, okay? And because so much of the data which is gathered from a materialistic platform, which seems cogent, it keeps paying off. The materialists keep delivering again and again in the lab. I would be foolish to immediately discount that platform. I see the
Except for consciousness, which is the base, the basis of everything.
Penrose has, of course, done lots of research into this himself.
So who else, sorry?
It's Roger Penrose.
Oh, right.
He's worked with anaesthetists on these structures inside the brain called microtubules. You know,
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So he said things like consciousness is not a computation. I think Penrose's thinking on this is brilliant, but he's very aware that there is it's almost like the gap between two synapses in the brain, or Adam and God trying to reach out, and they can't quite connect. It's like the missing link, not in the sense of evolution, because there is no missing link there. But
I mean,
but in the sense of going from, as we're discussing, the pure material substrate of the brain to consciousness in the mind. For now it remains a mystery. But I don't think we can categorically say whether or not material science will solve that one day or not. It might be that we have to change our conception of what material science is.
I just want to add something. You're familiar with the Mary thought experiment?
Mary.
She's in a room that's grey.
Yes.
Right. So we all recognize, whether you're materialist, panpsychist, theist, we all recognize there's a hard problem of consciousness. We know it's there.
Yeah, there's a hard problem.
There's a hard problem. Okay. Now, certain things I think should be ruled out in terms of consciousness. I believe there's two views that should be ruled out. And I want to get your thoughts on this. You may agree or disagree. I believe materialism cannot be justified if the hard problem exists, then materialism has to be false. Secondly, and that's categorically. Secondly is a probabilistic point I'm going to make, not categorical, which is the view of mysterioism, that consciousness is a mystery, our brains didn't evolve to help us solve it. I think that's unjustified considering all of the technological advances that we've done. We've gone to the moon, well, some people believe we don't. We're involved in quantum computing, we're sequencing the genome, we're doing all of this. So I believe it's for materialists, it's a get out of jail card to say, it's too much of a mystery and we'll never solve it. It's better to admit that materialism has been shown to be false.
For the reason I just said, because materialism has delivered so many other positive and coherent solutions to so many pragmatic problems, I don't feel equipped to dismiss it. I see the philosophical problem it presents, and I think you're right. At a philosophical level, I totally agree with you. On a more pragmatic level, I've got to give some...
Can I just unpack what you said there and just want your thoughts?
Sure.
Materialism has delivered XYZ epistemically.
Yeah,
right?
In the lab.
Okay.
That's where we go for our data.
I would say it's not materialism that's delivered, it's empirical science.
The methodology,
which people make synonymous with materialism, but it's not synonymous with materialism because under a deistic view, which is your view, right, which is not materialistic clearly, you would still as a scientist produce the same results.
But all the luminaries you've been listing are, you say, materialists, yes?
Well, which luminary?
You were mentioning various scientists who were materialists and you were castigating them for being materialists. Yeah? I'm saying I philosophically agree with you, but I can't ignore their expertise to the point where I can completely dismiss their perspective. Given that qualia is such a mystery and consciousness is such a mystery, it may simply be beyond my grasp. I think we're missing something. I don't know what it is.
Okay, I think you missed the point I was making. The point I was making is the successes that you're pointing to are not due to materialism. They're due to empirical science. And that empirical science can be done by a materialist, a theist, a deist, whoever it is.
Okay, ignore what I said about the people you quoted. Fine, I take your point. They've misunderstood the nature of science.
Yeah.
Structured scientific methodology should be more aware of all of the ontological dimensions. Except that's not the brief of physics. It's not the brief of physics to address ontology. It's the brief of physics to address physics, yes? It's necessary that they limit their purview of ontology to a specific field. But once they start paying out predictively in the lab, I have to give them some due respect. And just because I have a philosophical problem with going, but that doesn't seem compatible with another idea, doesn't mean I can completely reject the validity of it.
No, so I agree with you, except when it comes to certain fields, right? For example, quantum mechanics, you cannot separate physics and philosophy. You cannot. So someone can look at the same phenomena and come up with many worlds, relational, the